It's time to start our first round of seeds. It's constant, it seems like. We don't really get a break, but that's because of this guy back here. And we're gonna take advantage of it. And what I wanna do is, because we're starting broccoli, I'm gonna show you where I'm gonna put it, why I'm gonna put it, when I'm gonna put it in the ground. But I wanna use this time to talk about starting broccoli seeds. Just go ahead and get it out of the way, because everybody's gonna have plenty of time to digest this and use it and use the knowledge for their seed starting adventure. You can see the greenhouse is doing well. So back here we've got our greens and stuff, which this is all gonna basically stay the same as far as I know. It can be hit or miss, but this is the sunnier area. This area right here is the sunnier area, and then this area right here is the sunnier area, which means it gets the most growth, all that good stuff. But these are our potatoes, and you can see they're probably about 3 feet high at this point. So we've got roughly 30 days left, I would say. You can see it's starting to fall over, so that's just the beginning of them producing. So we're gonna try and get this ready for, you know, to harvest and then replant. So timing is everything, and it's crucial. It's absolutely one of those things that we want to do and we want to nail our timing. And if I have about 30 days left, that means that I can put the broccolis in the ground anywhere from 30 to, what is that, 44 days, excuse me, I got the hiccups. That'll give us time to get them situated and get them going so that we can get them going. I gotta try and get rid of these hiccups. I'll be right back. Hiccups are gone. Welcome back to Sandy Bottom Homestead, everybody. Hope you're having an absolutely fantastic day. My name is Ben, and I am in coastal North Carolina. It is about 75, 74 degrees today. And I think it's a really good time to get these broccoli started. So these are not the broccolis that I'm gonna put out here in the spring. So I'm gonna start them differently, meaning I'm not gonna put them under lights or anything like that. I wanna start them outside. I know I've got about 10 days at minimum before we start to drop in temperatures, at minimum now. So, and even then it doesn't look like it. So we wanna start them out, and what we can do is we can move them into the sunniest part of our entire yard, not just our garden. So we can really get them as much sunlight as possible, get them going. And then I'm gonna grow them out inside the greenhouse. I have that shelf in there that I'm gonna put them on. And what that'll do is that is going to eliminate the period of time in which I need to harden them off. So that will speed up the planting process. So I'm back here at the seed starting area. A little bit of TLC before I get started, which I won't do on camera, don't worry. But I'm gonna start some imperial broccoli seeds. I've got a couple left. Actually, I got more than a couple. I've been trying to work these down. Let's see, how many do we even have? Yeah, I've got enough for this little project, so these will be done. We just uploaded a bunch of seeds to our seed shop, and we've got Waltham broccoli in there, which I do like to grow. So my goal is to get through all of my other broccoli seeds, hopefully, and then at least put a portion of those into my garden. But I'm using these because these are a hybrid seed. And so it gives me a little bit of, it kind of gives me a little bit of a handicap. So I know that I'm starting in the darkest part of the year, the coldest part of the year, and in the greenhouse can be the pestiest area of my garden, you know, because it doesn't get as cold, so the pests can really proliferate unless you stay on top of them. So I'm going to put the hybrid in there just to kind of give me a leg up. These are cold tolerant, I believe. I'm pretty sure they're pretty cold tolerant, so that's why I chose those. And you know, the heirlooms are good, but they can be a little bit finicky. So I want something as easy as possible to go in the garden. And plus, I'm not saving seed from them, so I could care less. I'm not worried about getting pure seed or anything like that. All right, so the trick behind this, first of all, is this is a one-shot deal. I don't get a redo on this at all. There's very, very little room for error. So I'm gonna start extra seeds in case there's always an issue, right? So this will help me ensure that I have a plant to put into the ground. So what I'm gonna do is I have space for 8 plants, and I am going to make 12 seedlings, so that should give me a little bit extra. But then I'm also going to start an extra 6 if I have enough seeds, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to continue to grow these broccolis in here as long as I can, as long as they're not getting too root bound, and try and get those into the actual garden quite a while from now. So we'll see how that goes, but this will just give me enough to make sure that I have enough seedlings to actually fill out my space. If I started 8, it wouldn't really work out well. And so that's why I chose the classic 6-pack, because there's plenty of root space in here. You know, I am anticipating leaving one of these broccolis, one of these 6-packs planted for a month longer than they should be, but I'm also anticipating there being a lot slower growth. So that's why I'm choosing these versus some of the other containers. And as we go through and we start doing more and more seed starting, I'll talk about the other containers that I use, but I don't just simply throw plants into a container and say, well, this is what it's going in. There's usually a thought process behind it. So this is what we're going to use for this, and then we have plenty of room on that shelf. Shouldn't be an issue. A lot of videos about my process here, but invariably I always get questions, so I'm going to continue to show every time in case there's somebody new or something like that. But what I'm doing is I pre-wet my soil, and then I'm going to make little divots, and so I don't bury my seed. I make the divot so the seed will rest in there. And broccoli is one of those things, so that's all the seed that I have. It's going to be tight. I like to put a couple in, especially these seeds are just starting to get a little old, so I'll start with 2 in each one. And I think today my goal is to get through all of these seeds. I don't want them anymore. I don't want to keep them. There's no point in keeping 10 seeds. So I put a couple in. I'll probably have enough for 3, so I'll put 3 in each hole. And I always recommend don't just drop 1 seed in if you can. Try and put 2 or 3 in, just to give yourself another fail-safe, but be prepared to thin. And now I keep this big giant bag of perlite out here, get it really cheap, and so I top dress with this. And the key, if you're gonna leave it outside like me, just try and keep it dry. It's kind of hard with everything, but then I just cover. So I don't bury my seeds with anything but perlite. And what it does is it's easier for them to push out, retains water, and all that. But that being said, ask me about using vermiculite, because I don't use vermiculite. Perlite, I found this bag very cheap at my local garden center, and it doesn't retain as much water, but it retains some water. So it kind of lets it dry out a little bit. I don't like vermiculite because it gets a little too heavy. Perlite stays very light. So the seedling can push through the perlite a lot easier. So that's why I use that. If you ask me about vermiculite, I'm not going to answer you. So don't even do it. So that's what we use for this, and we've been doing this for a couple years, and I love this method. It works out really good. At this point, they're done. We just need to water them. We don't tamp them. We don't do anything. And I can even leave them out here until they germinate. They don't need sunlight until they germinate. They don't need any light. So it'll be a couple days. I'd imagine probably 7 days. If I move them out into the sun, well, I probably should, because the warmth will help them germinate faster. So we'll let them sit here for a day, and then we'll move them out and just make sure that we get this soil nice and soaked. It's not very hot right now, so the soil is not going to dry out really fast. But broccoli. So broccoli and even cabbages are the first things that I start for my garden every year. And they take 7 to 10 days to germinate, and then you want to keep them in the seed cell for about, if you can, 6 to 8 weeks. Okay, so after that, then you can take them out and you can harden them off, stuff like that. You don't up pot them, so don't up pot them. Just try and determine what size tray you need. So I use that. Now this is another tray that I use a lot for them. These are about half the size, and this works just fine. I actually need to set this out in the sun. This plastic, and it's a little formed because of the heat, but we'll grow them in these, and then they will last just fine. Put them in the garden, no issues whatsoever. And in this tray right here, you have probably, I would say roughly 6 weeks before you really need to start thinking about doing something with them. The benefit of that is you can put, I think it's like 10 more seedlings in an area, and they hold less water, so you don't have to worry about getting them waterlogged. But as they grow, they'll get bigger. Yeah, obviously they'll get bigger as they grow, but they will use the water up faster versus something like this doesn't take as much water. So it has more soil in it. But because we're doing these outside, that's why we're going to do these. And these will hold water better. So you can go 8 weeks in these and it won't really dry up too fast, but they will start wrapping. So what you want to do at that point, when you move them out and you start to harden them off, you want to catch it before the roots wrap. Okay, so that tray I had was a failed tray. I'll show you how I do that. Just pretend that this is an actual live plant, and as it gets bigger you can actually pull it up and the whole block will stay with it, and you can see like this plant started to wrap just a little bit. It wasn't terrible, but if the roots are starting to wrap a lot, then it's time to do something. And that something is don't up pot it. Don't up pot it, okay? Time it out so you can get it in your garden at the right time. We won't be doing any kind of cover in the greenhouse for them, but if we put them out here later on, like in mid-January to early February, then we would absolutely be prepared to cover them just to give them that extra layer of protection. Just depends on what our weather is doing. But again, I don't recommend up potting them. I think it's more important to figure out your timing. And if you need help with that, you can send me an email, the link below, and I can make you a seed starting chart for your area that will help you narrow down that window for yourself. You know, they cost 10 bucks. Send me through Venmo at Sandy Bottom Homestead, and we can get you going. Just make sure you include your zip code. So I've made a bunch of those. I use the exact same thing, but for my area, and it works well. So what it does is it just kind of points you in the right direction, so that a lot of people want to up pot everything, and there's actually very few things we up pot in our garden. So that tray looks like the soil blocks are smaller, but you can really get a full seedling out of there and get it in the ground in perfect time. Now, as far as fertilization goes, these are heavy feeders, so we're going to want to fertilize early and often for these. So once I get my first set of true leaves, I will give it a week fish fertilizer solution. So something like this, very weak. And then we put, what I put next is Osmocote, which is a slow release. It's not organic, but it slowly releases every time you water, and so I don't have to really worry about it too much. If they start to turn yellow, they need more nitrogen, and if I have that Osmocote on there, then what I do is I'll give it another diluted fish fertilizer. And just keep fertilizing. You know, if you put that Osmocote down, really you should only need to do that first. And when I say what I do is I put a pinch in. I just grab a pinch and I put it in. It doesn't take much. And then after that first fish fertilizer, that should be all you need. And then once you get ready, if you have to harden them off, which we'll do again because invariably I'm going to start more broccoli. But if you do have to harden them off, you don't fertilize right before with anything extra. Just leave that Osmocote in there. Transfer it over when you plant so it's already in the ground. It's not much, and it'll feed it a little bit, but for your seedlings you don't need a whole lot. And then we plant them, and we put our pre-planting fertilizer in, granular organic, and then we'll shoot them some liquid probably about 2 weeks later. The only difference is this time of year, because we're doing it and it's colder, we want to make sure that it's not going to be, we're not going to fertilize just before a hard freeze where we could get a lot of fresh growth and then bam, lock it down and kill it. So we want to make sure that we're judging for that. But excuse me, the earlier you get these started, the better off you are, because these are, broccoli and cabbages are the first things that go in your garden. And I can tell you this, they're going to go in your garden a lot earlier than you expect. Goodbye.